Hey, welcome back to the video lecture series for PEP 406 Curriculum Design and Physical Education. I'm your instructor, professor, mentor, Dr. Chad Kish. And today's lesson will be on Chapter 11, and we're going to explore outdoor education. This is a great curriculum model that you can build curriculum sections or design specific instructional units. It could be a instructional design unit, but it's usually more focused on various larger chapters or larger sections of your curriculum, such as a unit. So here's today's agenda. We're going to start off just describing what the outdoor education model is. We'll discuss various activities that can be included in an OE model. We'll talk about some instructional considerations important for this model. We'll discuss various competencies. We will show how to align this with our NASP standards. We'll talk about some activities and assessments, as well as we will discuss our assignment to apply the knowledge from today's lecture, the outdoor education lesson concept. All right, let's get rolling. So what is outdoor education? Outdoor education provides students an opportunity to get challenged in a activity setting outside of the normal gymnasium. It can include various vigorous physical movements. So what does this mean? Consider the movements of rock climbing or wall climbing or possibly rowing a canoe, mountain biking, race cycling, hiking with a backpack with outdoor equipment to camp. So those could be vigorous physical activity or movements. All right, you can build some cardiovascular fitness in hiking and some of these activities as well. Number two, it provides challenging cognitive applications. So we're moving from the psychomotor to the cognitive. How do we deal with an unpredictable environment? What decisions do we have to make when we're putting up our tent? Do we canoe to fish to be able to eat tonight on our trip? Or how do we handle whitewater rafting? What do we have to do when we get a hook caught in ourselves for first aid and safety, right? Plus, it brings in just a variety of challenging cognitive applications. What do I have to do with my gun for hunter safety? What are the different things I look for? Number three, it can build skills for a healthy lifestyle within our environment that we can use now, our students could use now, and generally throughout the lifespan outside of the gym, right? Most of these activities include some challenging fitness concepts, and then the other ones might be able to be done throughout the lifespan. Even though deer hunting might not be considered something that you would think as a challenging physical activity, you're going to have to work on your motor skills for shooting and aiming. But to get to your deer stand or to get through the woods or to even carry the deer out of the woods after you've shot it requires some vigorous physical activity that you should teach your students. That's where you can bring in some of that things to train for. All right. Number four, it uses cooperation to complete challenging tasks and appreciate the environment. Some of our activities can be designed in a cooperative or partner or group method. This could be when you have to work in a team. When you're rock climbing or climbing a wall, somebody's always climbing and the other person's holding the rope or doing what's called belaying, right? And there's some communication that needs to go on there. Belay on, all right? Or it could be a group camping trip, or possibly considering the welfare of the others or the environment when you're out camping, trying to leave no trace behind and clean up after yourself. Then number five, another opportunity to challenge students, it helps teach students how to recognize various ways to enjoy activities in different settings. This is non-traditional for sports. You always talk about, or I get asked the question, how do I get students that don't want to dress out or participate involved in PE? Outdoor education is an excellent chance to bring in some things where dressing out and sports skills aren't necessarily always involved in this. So different people enjoy different activities. Some of those can be with others. Some of those can even be alone. Some of them are a personal challenge. Some of them you might like as a kid, you might not do in your teenage years, but you might gravitate back to as an adult. So you never know when you might pick up some of these activities in the lifespan. All right, so what is the appeal? Uh, the appeal for the outdoor education model, it provides an opportunity to incorporate a lot of different things outside of just our sports setting when we get to the secondary curriculum development phase. It can bring in some excitement because we're doing new activities. It can bring in some challenge. We have to consider safety. We have to consider some things we haven't done before. Think about rock climbing. It's a challenge to get to the top, or a ropes course. Risk taking. A lot of our activities involve some things that allow students to stretch their positive, risky behavior to challenge themselves and try to set higher goals, to learn the goal setting process. It involves some cooperation in some of these activities. Even if you're doing an individual activity, you are cooperating with the environment in these, and people that may use the environment after you. But you might be involved in a cooperative activity. Think of a team triathlon, right? Think of a crew event where you're multiple people are rowing a boat. Think of a hike where you can only probably go as fast as the slowest person. It usually involves some decision making. This is where we can really focus in on the cognitive domain and teach people about different things to stretch their thinking, to make critical decisions, to use our depth of knowledge. And this is another way we can advocate for our profession, how we are teaching students the soft skills of decision making that are critical in their future success in life in both the personal and career and college field. Another thing is we have to have a tolerant attitude, right? So this brings in the affective domain. Uh, if we want to consider hunters or gun safety, some people don't like the fact that animals get killed, but other people do because it's a food source, right? Some people fish and keep fish. Some people always catch and release. As well as when you're camping, some people respect the environment, some people don't. A lot of people that respect the environment do cleanup projects when they get there, and then they clean up when they leave. So they're cleaning up after somebody else too. So can we have a tolerant attitude and learn to respect ourselves, others, and the environment? Like I said, this is really a chance to bring in the affective domain. And then there's a chance for inclusion. Inclusion occurs because in this outdoor education model and some of these activities, we really have to have a supportive educational environment so students will want to be challenged and want to increase their risk taking. If they feel they're supported, that's when they set higher goals. All right? Students can be challenged in various ways from various activities, and you can integrate different ones at different times throughout the curriculum, or possibly make this a course, an outdoor education course. I've seen that in a lot of schools. So what exactly are some activities we can do in outdoor education? We can bring in a lot of things. Think about cycling. Cycling is an outdoor activity. It can be vigorous at times. You can put this anywhere in the curriculum, from learning to ride a bike to cycling for fitness. It could even be a stationary bike. All right. So one of the activities I really enjoyed the most in elementary was we did cycling, and we had a obstacle course, and we had to do different bicycle safety things. And at the end of that, when I was about, I think it was about third grade, that we integrated this into our curriculum. If you passed the test, you got your bicycle driver's license. And as a kid, think about an elementary kid getting a driver's license. And at that time, it was just my name on a card that said bicycle driver's license. Just think about it today. With the technology, you could take a kid's picture, make it look similar format of a Missouri driver's license. The kids will be really have an artifact of learning and really take some pride in passing that test because, as a kid, you want to have a driver's license. The next thing, think about hiking. Hiking can bring in a lot of different things. You can bring in some fitness because you're going to have to explore some trails. You're going to have to get some cardiovascular fitness. In hiking, you might also consider backpacking, the weight that you would have to do to hike, to take a meal, to possibly hike and spend the night and camp. Rock or wall climbing can be done in a variety of areas. You'll probably obviously start out with the wall climbing, whether you have it in your own gym or you have local facility, a community recreation facility that you can use, and teach your students all the safety. Great way for challenge. And when you're thinking of rock climbing, also start thinking about the ropes courses. There's challenge courses. A lot of corporate activity centers have these that will let you probably as a school come in and use them for free. It can be an excellent field trip opportunity. Boating, especially if you're in a rural area, canoeing, kayaking, even boater safety, the water safety courses are critical. You can work with the Missouri Department of Conservation and the Highway Patrol, who runs the water safety in the state of Missouri, and they can come out and help you with some boater safety. Fishing is a great activity that can be done throughout the lifespan. This is one where you can learn everything from different fish to different hooks to different lures to when you should use what lure, how to tie a knot, how to appropriately unhook a fish, how to use the catch and release theory so the fish continue to grow, understanding even as far as the size that's legal limit for keeping. So fishing can be done throughout the lifespan. It's a great activity too to involve families. If you want to teach the fishing unit, actually take a field trip then during the day to go to a local area. Most of the conservation areas will let you come in for free. Your kids will be exempt and having a fishing license. And you can fish there, and then you can add in a community event where you bring families in to tie them to education, because kids can probably only fish if their parents want to take them to fish. All right, so if you can get the whole family involved, that's a great opportunity to tie our PE program to the total school, total community programming idea. Another one is hunting. You can do this in target shooting, archery, hunter's education. Right, there's a variety of ways to put hunting or hunter's education or target shooting into the curriculum, anywhere from air rifles to archery. Archery is huge in Missouri at that late elementary, middle school area. You might encourage your kids, if they enjoy target shooting, to join a club or to possibly get involved. The Missouri State Middle School archery competitions, usually here in Jefferson City. So that's a great area to get them involved as well. Great for hand-eye coordination. Orienteering. What is orienteering? Orienteering is the use of maps, compasses, technologies to navigate or find your way. You can do this in different ways. You can have some maps and have them read a map. You can have them design a plan to get from one spot to another. Or you can even do the newest tactic of orienteering is geocaching, where you can set up some different things and they have to use coordinates with their phone to get to different areas, and then it can be a scavenger hunt where they pick up different items and different individuals or teams could get those items and bring them back. Or you might even add fitness into it, where when your team gets to this area, you turn over whatever it is that they're looking for. It's going to have a card, tell them one student has to take a video of all the other students doing 10 push-ups. So you can really tie fitness into this. The other thing, when you're geocaching or orienteering, students are not only cognitively understanding how to orient themselves or get from one spot to another, they're moving, they're walking around. Camping is another activity. We can teach the basics of camping, setting up a tent, what you want to take on a camping trip, what food you want to take, how you can even outdoor cook, things like that, as well as where and why you would set up your tent, what sources you would look for, being able to camp through the elements. Are we camping on a hiking trip or just driving in and camping? And then you can actually put this to use at some schools into a field trip type setting. It depends on where you're at, but cross-country skiing is another excellent outdoor activity. When you're in the northern parts or in Colorado or mountainous areas or areas that get a lot of snow, skiing and cross-country skiing is an excellent outdoor education activity. Believe it or not, we even did this at the special school district in Missouri. When we had enough snow on the ground, we would take the kids that had the proper clothing. And in this, though, you can take some cognitive teaching too. You can talk about the dangers of frostbite and and what acclimation to the cold brings into. Another idea, if you have an area where you could surf or water ski outside, depending on your access to water, if you're coastal, surfing is a great physical activity. And then even spelunking can be incorporated with hiking and camping, but spelunking is an activity that you might not have heard before. Name sounds funny, right? But it is actually exploring caves. So you're going to have to crawl, you're going to have to walk, you're going to have to be challenged with the elements with uneven surfaces. So there are a variety of things, activities there you can consider for your outdoor education curriculum. Remember, outdoor education isn't just lifetime sports like golf, frisbee, badminton, etc. It's an activity that adds the challenge of doing something in an unpredictable environment. For example here, I wanted to show you, I enjoy fishing. I live at the Lake of the Ozarks. I grew up fishing as a kid, and as I gravitated towards team sports in my late middle school era, I rarely fished, maybe once or twice a year, if any. In my adult life, when I got in my career, I didn't have that many opportunities to fish, and I just got bogged down with life. And in the last 5 or so years, I've really started enjoying, now that I can't play that full court basketball anymore. My knees don't allow me to do that. I still do, try to play some other recreational team sports, but fishing, it's become, something that I really enjoy to do. It takes a lot of cognitive understanding if you really want to be good at it. What the light is, what the water temperature is, which way the wind's blowing. Is it spring? Is it fall? What kind of bait am I going to use? How am I going to tie a knot? How am I going to safely get the fish off the hook? And then you have the challenge when you actually catch one. This is a hybrid or white striped bass, of pulling one in. And these fish, I put a picture of them. Number one, they're pretty good size, but number two, they zig and zag a lot and are a challenge to pull in. And if you've ever spent a full day fishing, you're going to realize there's a little bit that goes into it. You're going to be sore if you're on a boat because you're going to have to use your core strength to stay balanced. You're going to cast a lot. So you use some different muscles involved too. But fishing is an activity I enjoy, so I just wanted to share those pictures with you. Next, let's talk about outdoor education versus adventure education. Adventure education is a different model, but they have a lot of similarities, and we can kind of intertwine them at times and create some activities that might be labeled one or the other or both. It can bring in some of the same learning. So the similarity is they focus on personal as well as group development, the skills to improve individually, to challenge yourself, as well as to cooperate and communicate with others. They focus on experiential learning, which means learning by doing. You're doing activities and you're learning while you're doing it, and the experiences you have are really going to lead to some reflective actions and continuing to learn and persist in the activity. How are these two models different? Adventure activities occur really in pre-developed settings. The teacher's going to develop the setting. They're going to give them some kind of game, rules, scenario. They're going to lead the students, and then they're going to allow them to process through the adventure or the cooperative challenge. But outdoor activities occur more in a natural setting. Although we may decide not to do something because it's a rainy day as the teacher, it might start to rain while we're out on a hike. So you never know, the environment can be unpredictable. If you're doing a bicycle riding session, you never know where traffic's going to be. So you can't really plan as many things out in outdoor education as you can in adventure education. So safety in outdoor education is critical. So you have to really consider that and be very knowledgeable on the way. And while things are going on, you have to be on the lookout because your kids might not understand all the safety associated with it. And outdoor education emphasizes different skill development. We focus on physical, cognitive, and affective skills specific to that outdoor activity. A byproduct is learning and appreciation of the natural environment, as well as the human impact on the ecosystem. Is there trash on the trail? How can we help make the environment better? So we can really have a byproduct of our learning and go into NASP standards 4 and 5. Why do we enjoy it? and really consider our respect for ourselves, why we enjoy the activity. So here are some important instructional considerations when we're building the outdoor education curriculum. First of all, it takes a lot of advanced planning. Consider your resources. Is there a cost involved? What's the student-teacher ratio, especially for safety? Is there specialized equipment that we have or we need? Can we get that from some kind of community-based resource, right? Can we have the cost or ability to travel to a site? Can we make a field trip or a community event out of this, right? Consider your external resources here too. The Missouri Department of Conservation has a lot of resources. They might even provide you with an outdoor education grant to take your students to the field trip, where they might pay for the entry fee or waive the entry fee to a specific lake or wildlife area, as well as they might provide you with a lot of the different equipment. All right. Number two is extending training and expertise, especially for you as a teacher. The teacher must have the skills to teach these challenging activities safely. All right. It is important for you, if you're going to teach archery, for you to have the certification to teach archery in the school setting. And that requires you to basically go to a conference and take a short course and a test to get that certificate. So you're going to probably need some extended training on some of these things in archery, in rifle shooting, whether it's air guns, right? If you're going to take a group to a climbing wall or a rock course or even a ropes course, you're going to need to have that training on belaying. You're going to need to really consider having other people come in to help supervise, because you might not be able to supervise 20 people on a climbing wall to ensure their safety. But you have to be comfortable teaching these activities. Even if they're in the curriculum guide, if you're not very comfortable, you need to go get that extra training to be comfortable teaching them. If you're not, it might be an area you save for the following year. And number three, there needs to be a continuum of experiences. Even though we're going to have to do a lot of this learning in the classroom, in the gym, or in our area right around our school, we need to have some kind of continuum where we move from the classroom to off campus, right? You might, if you're in an urban setting, you might have to set up some field trips to get to a wilderness-based setting or an outdoor-based setting. If your school's already rural, you might not have to travel as far. But you need to make sure that somewhere along the line you have some kind of culminating experience or experience outside of the classroom, so students can really tie your outdoor education to the outdoors. All right, so here are some suggested competencies or things we would want to teach people throughout outdoor education. And there's a vast array of these. We got to remember, this is something that can be integrated as a class or can be integrated as different units or different lessons. And when you struggle to reach kids that don't really enjoy the team sports or aren't advanced in team sports and want to do other things, these are excellent ways to tie in some cognitive skills, some psychomotor skills, and touch a little bit on the affective process. Number one, the technical skills. What does that mean? You'll learn technical skills like reading a compass, reading a GPS, tying a specific knot, using a specific paddle stroke if you're canoeing. All right? Those are technical skills. That ties to NASB standard number 1 and number 2 as well. Number 2, you'll learn some ideas for outdoor living. What do you have to do if you're going to go outdoor and camp? You're going to have to make a list, pack, select an appropriate campsite. Can you build a fire? Can you cook outside? Do you understand the sanitation for yourself and the site? Number 3, you'll focus on safety, and this is where you're building a depth of knowledge and critical thinking skills for your students. You might have to first inspect the equipment. Is there a walk around to a bicycle? Do you have the camping equipment right? Do we inspect our carabiner and our ropes if we're going to rock climb? Next, we have to make sure our students understand the basic first aid that could happen in these outdoor activities. As a teacher, what happens if somebody gets a hook in their finger if you're fishing, right? We also have to consider the safety of, if we're in archery or we're in target shooting, where do people stand? When can people actually aim? When can they fire, right? This also brings in some risk management as well as planning and preparing for the unpredictable environment, including weather. Number 4, think about the environment. How can we minimally impact the environment and ensure that we're respecting the environment? Can we leave nothing behind when we're camping? Can we clean up our site and leave it better than it was before? When we're fishing, do we understand even what the size limits? Do we have the concept of catch and release and why the size limits are there? It's not just that there's not very much meat on the fish. The size limits in Missouri generally are set on if that fish is the size that they've been able to breed multiple times in their growth pattern to put enough eggs back to restock that fish species in a plentiful manner. It's usually through 2 to 3 breeding cycles, not necessarily just that there's enough meat on the fish. Right? Think of 5 here, organizational. Do we have to plan? Is there a permit or a license we have to do things? What kind of route do we take? What kind of equipment do we need? Do we have to purchase it? Can we buy it? Can we rent it? Goes back to safety. How do we even inspect it? Right? Why would we want to put a tent under a tree? Why would we want to put a tent out where it could get more sunlight? Depends on your weather and your environment. All right. Number 6, instructional. We have to use progressive teaching approach in these activities. A lot of students have never seen them before. So think, we're going to have to build up our students' fitness before we can go hiking or rock climbing and build up some muscular strength in your arms and legs and balance before we can get on the rock wall. So we're going to have to progressively plan and instruct and build our students' capabilities and abilities before we do some of our activities. It's not just, hey, we're in outdoor education, let's go. All right. The next thing is facilitation. Consider your group dynamics. Is there some cooperative activities? How do we prepare students to make decisions? You as the teacher are going to need to be direct and on top of things that are safety considerations, but you need to facilitate group leaders or students to develop their own appropriate level of challenge and do things. You're not going to be able to cast for every student on a fishing trip, but you can explain how to cast and facilitate different things. All right. Number 8, leadership. Is there some shared decision making involved? Generally there is. If you're going to make a list for what you're going to take on a camping trip and different students are going to have to bring it in, you're going to have a leader, you're going to have to make the list, you're going to have to ensure people brought what they were supposed to, check off things before you ever leave to go on that trip. You're going to have leaders either develop or emerge within your classroom. So you can provide opportunities for shared decision making, effective leadership, use of judgment, cooperation, as well as communication within the outdoor education model. And number 9, consider environmental ethics. What are appropriate standards for outdoor activities and how we, as participants, affect the environment? All right, this brings in NASB standard number 4 with personal and social responsibility. So next, let's talk about planning for outdoor education. And when we're planning for outdoor education, what are reasonable and achievable expectations for students? All right, we have to find what the baselines for our students are, find what even equipment we can have to see how much time we have to challenge, but what are our reasonable expectations for our students within each lesson and within our whole outdoor education plan? All right. Next, what are our resources that are available? What's the cost? What's our equipment needs? Do we need transportation? Do we even need some kind of insurance? Do we need to do school-related field trip permits and get parent permission before we do some of these? We need to understand all those and have that organization piece completely put together before we do our outdoor education program. What skills do you as the teacher need to be able to teach these activities? Are there skills you need? Is there information you need? Is there a certification you need? Is there some background training? These are some specific skills. If you're not somebody that's a competent outdoorsman, you're going to need to get some additional training. And then when you're planning, we always have to consider the end goal. How do you assess or evaluate learning of students? Right? What artifacts can you produce to show learning? Are the performance objectives actually measurable? So we need to remember to write measurable and observable three-part performance objectives for our lesson. And then how do we tie those back to our overarching GLEs or GLOs? If there's a culminating activity as a camping trip, what happens if students don't go on the culminating activity? How are you going to assess them? Is there an alternate activity for them? All right. So how do the standards, the NASP standards, apply to the OE model? It's really, everything's going to be activity specific. Is it standard 1, competency and motor skills? Some outdoor activities are going to have specific motor skills. Some are going to have movement patterns. Some are going to require some fitness. Some are going to require less levels of fitness, depending on if it's rock climbing or hiking or canoeing, or if it's fishing or camping. All right. Can you apply your principles of strategies and tactics? It really depends. So if you look through all of your NASP standards, you can find a way to tie most standards to most activities. Some will have 1 to 3, some might have all 5. So it's really going to be activity specific. When we really consider our environment though, this number 4, exhibiting responsible personal and social behavior that respects self and others, this might have a stronger link in almost every activity if we design it that way. All right. So think of this. NASP standard number 1 could be hiking a 10-mile trail. Standard number 2 could be using the knowledge and understanding how to use a compass and a map to complete a geo-tracking activity. How do we connect to standard number 3? Can complete an endurance-style bicycle race or triathlon. Standard number 4, clean a campground after you use it to leave no trace that your group was ever there. And standard number 5, inviting a friend with you and have them help you plan for a camping trip, and then just spending time working together to complete things to prepare for the trip, as well as to cook some fun things like s'mores. And then discuss why you enjoy camping afterwards. All right, so that's how you tie the standards to the OE model. Thing that can be tricky is assessing student progress. So student learning is predominantly focused on psychomotor skills and cognitive skills when we can assess, because assessing the affective domain is usually a reflection type statement, and that's own personal values. So you're just really assessing that they do it, not how they do it. So psychomotor skills are involved in outdoor activities. You just have to determine how you're going to assess them. Are we going to use a checklist? Are we going to look at a skills rubric? Are we going to have some kind of fitness test? You have to be at a certain fitness level before you can go on the hike. All right. And the cognitive skills would be associated with the use of the psychomotor skills. It's more the thinking about it. Can we plan for the camping trip? Do we understand what is a safe shooting zone in archery or in rifle shooting? So here's some assessment strategies you could integrate into the OE model. Canoeing. You could teach different strokes on a canoe and then do a stroke observation rubric or checklist. In orienteering, you could have a rubric scoring sheet, or you could even have a checklist to see if students got to the different areas that were marked for them to get to. In cycling, you could do an obstacle course and check for completion and time. You could also, in cycling, do a safety walk around and have them point out the parts of the safety and use a checklist. In hiking, you could have them hike and look for different things on the trail, journal what they saw and how they felt over time, and you could even make that either a journaling or a portfolio type assessment at the end. If you add in some kind of reflective statement, now you're also checking for the affective domain and tying it to NASP standard number 5. What is orienteering? I want to go a little deeper into this because I know it's on the MOCA test, as well as it's something that's a little bit out there that we haven't probably discussed somewhere else. And it's something that can be really cool and added if you use technology to some current things and really make it a fun and challenging activity for your students. So orienteering is using a map a compass, coordinates, a phone, a GPS system to complete a process of getting from one point to another. It can be done in a scavenger hunt or just to have students reach a destination. All right, it allows for full participation by everyone. It really doesn't give you, you don't have to have a deep level of expertise. If you move it into geocaching, you have to kind of understand the technology, but it can be low cost. It can be done in various environments. It can be set up with a compass, or you can just say walk 6 steps this way, whatever the case. You can do it very low cost and make your own maps. It can be done in the school building or in your area around your school or even off-site. Geocaching is where you use GPS coordinates to do this, to move from one spot to another, complete a scavenger hunt. You may have somebody use their phone to find the GPS coordinates. You can have them seek out a series of checkpoints. The students could get a clue or have something to do at each destination, and a student have to use videotape it and email those videos into the teacher as the proof that it's been done. So you can bring in the technology that students really like to do and incorporate some fitness into it as well. You might even have some thinking. There might be a question there that tells them what they have to do to get to the next checkpoint, or have them answer something when they get to an area, have them turn over a card and they have to answer something and send you the answer before you send them the next coordinates. It can be cooperative, where all the groups are working together, or you could split people into groups or individuals and turn this into some time of competition. Do a series of exercise, one records before you can get the clue to get to the next checkpoint, and the first team that gets all the way through wins. I'd probably start this out cooperative so everybody enjoys the activity, and then as people get oriented to it, you could possibly have your culminating event be some type of competition. You might have them take video or photo evidence at each checkpoint and then see that at the end. If you're going to have a race, remember, a race requires students to move fast between checkpoints. Can we bring in our fitness activities here, right? Does your whole group have to run, right? And you have to stay together if you're in a group, right? People have to think fast. They have to use some critical thinking. They have to use immediate cooperation and communication skills. So navigating does require thinking, using different tactics or even technology, and determining some solutions. So orienteering is something that you could add to your curriculum, even if it's a PE class that doesn't have outdoor education or a budget to start an outdoor education program. All right? So here's a summary of the OE model. It adds a lot of value to the curriculum because we can do a variety of things that we can prepare students cognitively and with psychomotor skills to have a whole lot of things or ideas or activities that they can do throughout the lifespan. It provides intrinsic student rewards because of the risk students can take here. They can set some goals, they can try to get better, they can work together, they can do some kind of fun activity. It provides challenges. There are challenges built in most of these outdoor activities, whether it's a competition or whether it's just surviving or navigating through the environment. All right, there are risks. There's some perceived risk, and then there's some real risk. If we're doing a bicycle race throughout the community, there's going to be real risk. There's a chance for an accident. If we're fishing, there's going to be real risk. There's a chance for somebody to get caught with a hook or to grab the wrong type of fish in the mouth. Some fish have teeth. Right? Some fish, such as catfish, they have barbs that you could cut yourself. So there are real and just perceived risks. Right? If you don't check your safety when you're going to climb the wall, what happens if a rope breaks or the carabiner is not correctly attached? It really requires some instructor competencies. You have to be confident and competent in the activity to teach it safely and effectively to your students. So you're going to have to do some background work. If you're not comfortable with outdoor ed, you might take pieces you're comfortable with and then start expanding your own knowledge and skill base to be able to teach that to your students. And this can meet all 5 standards. It just depends on what activity it is, what you emphasize, but there's an opportunity to meet all 5 of the NASB standards in your activities. So let's wrap this up with your application of your learning today. All right, this is your Chapter 11 assignment on outdoor education model, or the OE model, and developing a lesson concept. This is the activity we've done a couple of times. We'll do several of these, and then we'll do some other activities to apply our learning to these different models. You're going to, number one, list 3 lesson concepts aligned with outdoor education. Think of the different activities I went through earlier in the presentation. Provide a detailed lesson concept aligned with the model for part 2. Part 3, write your detailed 3-part performance objective for the lesson concept you chose to describe in 2. And then in part 4 here, list A, B, C, and D, and that's going to be basically the outline of how you would teach the lesson and how you would assess it. All right, so we've done this type of assignment on some other uh, curriculum models. So here's our to-do list to close up our lesson today. Finish reading Chapter 11, Outdoor Education, if you haven't already, 255 to 275. Man, this is a fun model, even if you just select several activities, and it's a way to really engage and connect with your students that aren't necessarily your team sportsmen or sportswomen. Number 2, complete Chapter 11 assignment that I just went over, the Outdoor Education Lesson Concept assignment. Work on your final project, your K through 12 curriculum guide that I gave you several weeks ago. Make sure you're making some progress on that. And then before next lecture, read Chapter 12, Teaching Games for Understanding, or the TGFU model. That's page 277 to 301. Hopefully this was enlightening and you learned a lot of different things you could do. Like I said, you can have a class on this curriculum model, or you can have units or even lessons and pull specific activities out. Start with things you're comfortable with as the instructor, and then try to expand your own knowledge base to be able to provide different activities for your students. Have a great day, and we'll see you again next time.